training those littles, and we're working on that. And I know it's a work in progress, but teaching them Matthew 18 and explaining that if you have aught against your brother, if he offends you, you don't blurt out, he took my whatever, and try to just expose how evil they are and how great you are. But your goal is to try to talk sweet to them first. And if they don't hear you, you're trying to turn their heart to Jesus. If they don't hear you, then you come and tell mama and get me to go help.
Parents would do that with their children, because you can tell, even in the Christian community today, they haven't been taught that as children, and they don't know it as parents. And they are sowing discord in the body of Christ by making those accusations.
Yeah. Imagine your lawyer gets formally disciplined for malpractice by the state bar. Then 3 weeks later, he walks into court and enters not guilty pleas for 2 clients at once in a criminal case. 2 clients who were married to each other, 2 clients whose legal interests may directly conflict. That is exactly what happened in Arkansas this spring. And the question this video is going to answer is who is Travis Story actually working for? Everything discussed here comes from public court records, verified news reporting, and official legal documents. This is not speculation. This is a documented legal situation unfolding right now. Most people know the Duggar name from reality television. 19 Kids and Counting ran on TLC for years before the net. The family presented a very specific image to the world: faith, structure, and wholesomeness. That image has been dismantled piece by piece through a series of legal cases that are still active today. The most recent involves Joseph Duggar and his wife Kendra Duggar, who were arrested in late 2024 on charges related to child maltreatment and criminal endangerment, and both entered not guilty pleas on April 28, 2025, and both are being represented by the same attorney. That attorney is Travis Story. He has been the Duggar family's go-to lawyer for years. And the central problem in this case is not just his record. The problem is what his record reveals about who he is actually protecting. Here is where the timeline becomes. On March 31st, 2026, the Arkansas Supreme Court Committee on Professional Conduct issued a formal reprimand against Travis Story. This was not a warning letter. This was a documented finding of professional misconduct following a settled malpractice lawsuit filed in 2024 by a client named Matthew Valentine. The case involved a bankruptcy filing gone badly wrong. Valentine owned a property valued at over $2 million. He hired Story to guide him through a Chapter 11 reorganization, a process designed to help someone restructure debt rather than lose everything. What happened instead was a failure at almost every level. According to the formal reprimand, Story was found to have violated 5 separate rules of professional conduct. He failed to provide competent representation. He failed to act with reasonable diligence. He failed to keep his client informed about the status of the case. He collected fees the disciplinary panel deemed unreasonable. And when the representation ended, he failed to properly protect his client's interests on the way out. The result for Valentine was devastating. The lender moved toward foreclosure. Story did not notify his client. The bank took the property. Valentine had to buy it back through a private lender with significantly worse terms and suffered serious financial losses directly tied to his attorney's negligence. This was not the first time. In 2023, the same committee issued a formal caution against Story for violations following the same basic pattern. The Arkansas disciplinary system works in tiers. A caution is the first level. A reprimand is the second. Suspension is the third. Travis Story is now on the second tier with a documented track record and a third complaint already filed in December 2025 by another former client alleging the same failures. Now here is where the story shifts from legal malpractice into something more consequential for the Duggar case. 3 weeks after that formal reprimand, Story walked into court and entered dual not guilty pleas for both Joseph and Kendra Duggar on the same criminal charges. In Arkansas, as in most states, attorneys have an ethical obligation to provide conflict-free representation. When two defendants in the same case share a single lawyer, that lawyer cannot fully advocate for either one of them. It is a structural problem with real consequences. Think about what zealous defense of Kendra would actually require. A competent attorney representing her alone might argue that she had limited awareness of conditions in the home. That attorney might point to Joseph's separate, out-of-state conduct and active cases in Florida as the primary source of that. Attorney might even advise Kendra that divorcing her husband could materially help her criminal case. Story cannot do any of that. He represents Joseph too. Casting blame toward one client to benefit the other is not something a joint attorney can do. There is also the spousal privilege dimension. As long as Joseph and Kendra remain married, neither can generally be compelled to testify. A divorce filing would change that dynamic entirely. The fact that no divorce has been filed is notable. Whether that reflects genuine personal choice or the structural reality of shared legal representation is a question the court may eventually have to examine. This is the part most coverage has glossed over. Josh Duggar, currently serving his federal sentence, has raised ineffective assistance of counsel as part of his appeal process with Travis Story as the attorney under scrutiny. That claim is still being evaluated. If the legal system is already questioning whether Story gave adequate representation to one Duggar, the optics of him now jointly representing two more in a criminal case are Arkansas law gives both local judges and prosecutors the authority to challenge joint representation when they believe a fair proceeding is genuinely at risk. Given Story's documented disciplinary history, given his recent formal reprimand, and given the structurally conflicting interests of his two current clients, a motion to disqualify him or a requirement that both defendants sign a formal conflict waiver seems like a likely next step. A conflict waiver is exactly what it's. Both clients would have to acknowledge in writing that they understand their lawyer cannot fully advocate for each of them, and that they are choosing to proceed anyway. Whether that waiver would survive appeal scrutiny if either defendant later claims inadequate representation is a separate legal question entirely. So back to the original question. Who is Travis Story actually working for? The record suggests the answer is not primarily Kendra. It may not even be primarily Joseph. The pattern across years of Duggar-adjacent cases points toward someone else's interests being protected. And that is a serious problem when a defendant's freedom is what is actually at stake. The legal system has mechanisms designed to prevent exactly this situation. Whether those mechanisms are applied here will say something important not just about this case, but about whether the people with the least power in this family finally get someone in their corner who is actually there for